But I watch this on a daily basis because obviously, like we talk about, I sell real estate leads now, and I'm on this side of the people who I do actually have as clients. When they're having trouble communicating with people, meaning they can't get them on the phone, I then dive in. All right, let's go over your follow-up system. Let me see your messaging. How are you dialing them? How often are you dialing them? When does it go into a drip campaign? Do you even have a CRM? And we really dive in.
Hey, welcome everybody to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I am your West Coast representative, Rusty Ham. With me is a co-host on the East Coast. Steve, say hi.
Good to be here, Russell. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had some stuff going on in our personal lives that we had to attend to, and we are back. We're looking better than ever. I'm feeling good.
We are. And and to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday.
Yes, sir. I'd love to see you.
So hopefully we can hang out, and I'll be showing up a little bit late. So maybe you might pregame.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have a couple
whalers. Whalers rise.
That's right.
But again, we start each episode with mindset, skill set, and systems. Today, we are going to focus on mindset, specifically follow-ups, right? We've talked about cold calling. We've talked about the mindset, skill set. We've talked about how to talk. We actually role played, right, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
We've role played. So we've done some skill set. We've done some systems. We've talked about the initial dial and how to talk to sellers and get information from them, the key information, right? But if you don't follow up, then what's the use of making that first call? Follow up is key, right? The money's in the follow up. They always talk about that.
Yeah.
What I find, Steve, in our community is hypothetically, they talk to somebody on the first call, they set up, I'm going to email you my information. Then they set up a follow-up call, and they'll do the follow-up call. Let's say it's 24 or 48 hours and the seller doesn't answer. So now what's the first thing that goes through our associate's mind?
Yeah. All right. So it's funny what ends up happening when people ghost you or you're reaching out to people, or let's say specifically the situation, Russell, where you did talk to someone and you had a really good first conversation. You schedule a follow-up call and you're like, this is the best lead of the week. I can't wait to call this person. Let's progress them to an appointment or whatever the next stage is. And then they don't answer. And then you text them and then they don't answer. What do you start doing? In your head, you start going doomsday, right? Oh, they're going to do the deal. Somebody else gave a better offer, or just all these different things that have to do with like your internal world that has nothing to do with that. But the realistic thing, we talk about this all the time, Russell, is your urgency isn't theirs, right? Whoever has the house for sale is the one that's in control and you're on their timeline. So what I've always, especially with where I'm at now, we talked about a couple episodes ago about me being more on the marketing side of real estate. It's really interesting, the psychology behind follow-ups, especially when people stop answering you. And what I do see the mistake often is when people can't get in touch with them. Let's say when they're doing the messaging side, right? You can just call as many times as you want. And let's actually throw this out there. I just learned this the other day, Russell. I don't even know if you know this, but with phone providers now, depending on what phone providers you have, the first two calls actually may never ring for that person. It's the third one that connects. I don't know if you knew this. I literally was told about this new, what do they call, would it be like a TPC law? Is that what they would call it? So
I think so.
We always suggest people triple dial for reasons outside of that. Now it's come to find out it's actually very important. Where triple dialing is a great way to try to communicate with someone, where in the past, I thought that was crazy. And I'm like, that makes me feel super uncomfortable. When they pick up, if they pick up on the third time, they're going to be like, what? Right?
Calling me.
Right. And that's a part of my everyday now is I have to, if somebody doesn't answer, I don't have a choice. I have to triple dial them. And it's funny, the third time that phone rings, because they'll hang up and then they'll answer because they may think it's an emergency, right? Or maybe it's a family member that is, they need
Okay. So let's talk about it. So talk about the triple dialing, right? So I call you, whatever that sounds like. And then it rings on the other end, and then I get a voicemail. Do you leave voicemails?
Yeah. So we do 2 first calls, no voicemail.
So if a voicemail comes on, you just hang up on them.
Hang up immediately, call again.
Okay.
And then on the third one, if they don't answer the second call, I'll go ahead and leave a voicemail then. Same thing, setting up an expectation. Say, hey, Russell, it's Steve calling about your house. I know you had it for sale and we talked last week. Looks like right now is not a good time. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to text you right now, see if that's a better platform for you to talk. Maybe you're tied up. We'll
Mhm.
talk soon. If I don't hear from you, I'll talk to you. Maybe I'll call you in a day or so. So the reason why you set up these expectations is most likely what happens when people don't answer is you put them in some kind of automated drip, right? And that automated drip should line up with your voicemail, right? If your automated
Right.
drip sends them a text message and an email, then you should let them know that you're going to communicate that with them in other fashions because you couldn't get in touch with them now. And if I don't hear back, I'll call you maybe in a day or two. Because what ends up happening is if you have, say, a CRM that after they didn't answer, you set them into some kind of quick follow-up that does those two touches. It also sends maybe you a task to call them on Tuesday. So it's
Right.
good connecting expectations on voicemails because then they can't say, you're blowing me up. I don't know why you're calling me. Like you let them know in 4 different ways of communicating that this is happening.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. That's great. Because a lot of us, again, they expect the worst, right? Oh, the seller's ghosting me. They, like you said, they saw my email and they just said no. So they're just not answering, right? Rather than you got to pepper these people, right? You got it's usually, what is it? On average, you have to touch them at least 7, 8 times before when you start moving forward. Yeah. So I call you, or no, you call me. It doesn't, the voicemail comes on, you hang up. You call again immediately right after.
Right after the second I hang up, hitting them again.
Okay. So voicemail comes on again.
Hang up.
Third time, voicemail comes on, then you leave your expectation type of
Put them in
voice,
and then put them in a drip.
and then put them in a drip. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And then that drip. So now I guess we're getting into systems,
Okay.
not necessarily mindset, but so that drip, you leave a voicemail, you give them the expectations. Hey, I'm going to text you if you think that's a better platform. And then that's an automated that's an automated text, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that text has to be careful, right? Because you're texting, cold texting, right? So it
Mhm.
needs to be, it has to have the language that the phone providers agree with, right? You can't be saying, there's certain words you can't be saying in these
Mhm.
texts, correct?
Mhm.
Am I
Yeah, I
accurate in
think
that?
there's like stuff like you're supposed to have multiple assorted texts that like words like offer, words like there's certain words that you have to like kind of get rid of because of the
Hmm.
fact that it goes into to some kind of spammy, basically like a security spider web that grabs these things, sees that it's spam, marks you spam just in the text. But the big pieces and what I've seen just from, like I said, we talked about this being in the marketing world now. I'm really seeing what's actually working for language through a text message and email that gets people to respond. So in our brains, when we're new, Russell, you probably remember this, and I remember this specifically for me. When I was texting people, I wanted to sound like the most professional person in the world. This is Steve over at Professional Home Solutions. Amber, like you would think in your brain, you're like, I want to sound professional. I'm a business owner.
And then they talk to you and they're like, what kind of accent is it?
They're like, wait a minute.
I think he's talking about
Do,
Wayland.
yeah, do you buy houses or do you have a pizza shop? But what I watch this on a daily basis because obviously, like we talked about, I sell real estate leads now, and I'm on the side of the people who I do actually have as clients. Um, when they're having trouble communicating with people, meaning they can't get them on the phone, I then dive in. All right, let's go over your follow up system. Let me see your messaging. How are you dialing them? How often are you dialing them? When does it go into a drip campaign? Do you even have a CRM? And we really dive in. Now, my supervisor at my job right now, which is very interesting, is he designs all of these text messages,
Hmm.
and they are wild, Russell. They are not, hey, this is Russell, interested in buying your home. Give me a call back, like nothing like that, because that kind of stuff, people see it. When you see a text message on your phone and you don't like know who it's from, and it seems very professional, you're like, real estate agent, investor. I don't want to talk to that person. And I was telling you off screen, but this is very interesting to hear.
So is this, so hypothetically, if I haven't received anything from a seller, like I've tried to communicate with the seller, either text, voicemail, email, and then would you send out this
I
text
would
that you
this is the
tried
this
prior?
this is the message that would be sent out. If I've called, triple
Okay.
dialed, and no one's answered, and they've went into just a typical, like the first couple texts will be simple. Have you given up on selling your home? Like stuff like that. Just very simple. Now, if they don't answer in the first, because it goes triple dial, then it goes text, email immediately. And then hours later, it may do it one more time with a couple more messages. Now, this is where it gets good. So after that first message that says, "Hey, have you given up on selling your home?" Like 15 minutes later, a question mark gets sent out. 15 more
Just a
minutes
question mark.
later, two question marks get sent out. The whole point of this is to try to create urgency, right? And it
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter whether it gives positive or negative reactions from the seller. It's just getting them. If you don't have a chance to communicate, you don't have a chance, period. After the second question marks go out, it'll say, "Russell, have you been abducted by aliens?" Question mark. Blink twice if you need help. We'll call the authorities.
No
It's
way.
swear to God. And it works every time. They usually laugh. "No, I'm fine." And they laugh. "I've just been busy." Now they start defending themselves of why they didn't communicate with you fast enough, because now they feel bad. And also, it's funny. That's the whole thing. What's follow up is it's who is going to be the most persistent, creative, and have an ability to communicate across all these different personalities, but get
Mhm.
the result of a response back. That is as simple as it is. It's who can get them on the phone has a chance of being able to close a deal, find if there's a problem, find a solution. But if you can't communicate, you can't do anything. So whatever you have to do to get them on the phone, that's where you start seeing people have tons of success.
Yeah, you're gonna get some seller to be like, "This is stupid." They type in stop, right?
Yeah.
I'll stop, But the ones that think it's funny, because they want to talk to somebody who's real, right? They don't want to talk to some salesperson or some automation, right? They want to talk to, and it seems like if you send out a text like that, that there's some sort of humor behind you, and that you're a real person behind it.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool. Um, So follow up. So let's say they do call you back or they respond to that text. What would you say to, they say, "No, I'm fine. Whatever." What's the next? What do you do next after that?
They just go into it. It just because you got them to respond. So then it's like, all right, I'm glad you're okay. And then you just say, "What's the best time I can call you?" So I can just say, "I was just still interested in the house if it was for sale. When's the next time I can call you when you're available?" That's it. Because once you get them to answer, they're not going to just not answer from there. It's just their initial engagement gets them in it. That's it. So
Yeah.
just simple. Then you just take it from there. Typical now text. The only reason why you're not going to, you shouldn't be texting to try to close deals. Not to say people out there that can't do that. I'm sure people just send out mass amounts of offers and that's how they do wholesale deals or whatever it is. But communication wise builds trust, right? So the faster you can get in front of them or on the phone is the most highly likelihood that someone's going to actually sell the house to you.
Right. Before we hopped on, you talked about follow ups and you question because you ask them because some are getting upset that they're not getting the results that they wanted. Right. And so what are some of the questions? And then talk about some of the other follow-ups. Again, it's a combination of mindset and systems, right? Because there's people out there doing certain things for their follow-up, and they're crushing it for that reason, right? And then there's people that are not crushing it, and there's a reason why they're not crushing it, right? It could, and it's all about the follow-up and their mindset, right?
Yeah, it is.
Talk about, so just hypothetically, someone says, I'm not getting enough follow-up, or I'm not getting enough leads from these follow or I'm not getting enough follow-ups from these leads that I'm getting, that I'm paying. Because I think with you, that monthly fee is pretty
Mhm.
substantial to buy these leads, right?
Yeah.
So they're spending all this money to get these leads from you, and then they're getting pissed because nothing's happening. So describe the two different type of people that are following up, and why one is crushing it and why one's not.
Yeah. So, obviously to start here, I think what's important to know is you don't know what you don't know. So we see this a lot with beginners, right? People who are just getting into real estate, or maybe that they're agents, right? And they're more used to the retail side. And now they're trying to get into the buy and hold, flip, wholesale, do creative stuff, innovations, whatever it is that they're trying to get into. And they just they weren't in some kind of a system where they had to be reaching out an immense amounts of times a week to people. So the first time that you start getting into reaching out to people a lot, like, it's uncomfortable on the inside because you're saying to yourself, if someone called me 5 times in a day, I would be pissed. So you're just assuming for somebody else how they're going to react, because what you're doing is you're projecting your insecurities of this task onto
Yep.
this person. You don't know if it actually is affecting them that way, but that's what you do when you're uncomfortable. So what I see with the people who are newer is, in like a 4-day period, they'll contact somebody with a call, a text, and a call. That is not enough. It's just not enough. And that's why, like I was explaining before, like, typically, if you're really following up with people in like the first hours, the first hour of calling them, you should be hitting them like 5 times at a minimum. And you should do that a couple times a day. And then you should do that for multiple days straight, right? It's just one of those things where you can go and spread things out. And there's not to say that won't help either. But you have to understand, start thinking about the world of like people when they look at their phone, a phone rings and the number has nothing but a number attached to it. What do most people do? They let it go to voicemail. Also, what do most people do? They don't even listen to their voicemails, or it's the last thing they do before you get to bed. There's no urgency to listen to voicemails. People will open emails. They don't really respond as much, but text has like a 65% chance higher that someone will communicate that way over any other way. But now you got to think, if someone's think of you, right? You receive a text message, right? You see a number you've never seen of before, and then you look down and it's CVS and all these coupons that come up, right? So you start just thinking, anytime you see a number that you don't know what it is, that it's spammy or it's not someone I want to talk to. So that's where you have to start looking at the consumer, how they receive the information, and what's the highest likelihood, like getting mail, right? When you get mail, if it looks stupid, you don't even open it.
Yeah.
Throw it away.
Toss it.
Right. That's why people go and they use wedding envelopes now instead, or they use yellow letters, and they, even though it's printed out on it, the actual font looks like it was written. Like, all these tiny little tweaks give a personal touch, which will give you a higher likelihood that someone's going to engage. So you really got to start looking at it on the side of the consumer and how you would receive it when it comes to just being creative. But on the side of just following up, and we've talked about this, Russell, like that's sales. I remember way back when I first started, I don't remember, maybe it was Zach who sent it. Someone sent it to me. It was a sales chart of conversions and sales. Didn't matter what it is. It could be real estate. It could be whatever, selling food. It doesn't make a difference.
Mhm.
And it was like 10% of sales come from 2 touches. And then it just keeps jumping up. 30% of sales come from 3 to 4 touches. And then as you get to the very top, it says 80% of sales come from 15 touches and more and over that. So it's just proof that follow-up is everything. Because if your house is for sale, or like what we know, right? Even if your house isn't for sale, there's a reason why people cold call you, right? We have softwares where we can find you and we can literally filter an exact home that we would like to buy with an exact financial situation that this person's in, that gives us the highest likelihood that they'll be a fit for what we can offer them. And that's what people do. They pinpoint a client and then they throw volume at trying to find them. So I think it's just important to know that this is a follow-up game, right? If somebody continues to call you, even if you talk to them once and they ghost you, and then 6 months later, they talked again, had another good conversation, and they ghost you, there's a good chance they're doing that to everyone. Anyone else they
100%.
talk to, there's probably a pattern there. But
100%.
Russell, if you keep showing up and you continue to build a relationship, and when you do talk to them, you ask them about their life, and you just like slowly building trust and slowly showing that you're a good person, you're someone that they can rely on. Like, over time, if they're going to do a deal with someone, it's going to be the one that makes them have the warm and fuzzies inside. And that's the point of the follow-up system. The language and everything you use to drip on them over time, you can get creative, but just the human side of communicating. If the house is still for sale, that lead is not dead. If it's not you, someone else is going to buy it.
And that kind of gets into your why, right? if your why is not strong enough, then a lot of people aren't going to follow up, right? That anyone can do initial dials. That's why we have VAs, and you have VAs that are doing that for you. But if you don't have a strong why, then a lot of people aren't going to follow up. They might, like you said, they might do the 2 or 3 touch, and then they get all frustrated because they're not getting responses from the seller. So they just give up, and then they go back to what's comfortable for them, which is the initial dial, right? Because not many people are going to pick up, like we've talked about in the past. It's only about 10 to 15% are going to pick up anyway. So it's comfortable for them to go back to, oh, I'll just do initial dials. That makes me feel better. I know that they're not going to pick up, and if they do, or if I get a voicemail, I'll leave a voicemail. But what you're saying is maybe cut your lead, the leads that you're going to call, maybe cut them in half, and just really focus and put more attention on volume rather than, because what we in our community, the Wicked Smart community, we always track initial dials. But it sounds like we should be really focusing on, okay, how many times did you follow up?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not,
Yeah. It's super important. But the most important thing is setting up a system where you don't forget about people. So that's
yeah.
where the CRM is so important, where it can be something where it distracts people from the task at hand of communicating because they have this thing, right? You want to over automate. Like it's such a balance of
Mhm.
being able to get this machine running properly instead of feeding one thing and lacking somewhere else, so that now the one that thing was working doesn't work as well because you're not combining them together correctly. But what's it? Because and Russell, I'm sure you do too. Like anybody who's really passionate, really loves real estate, they like curate their social media with people that they look up to or people who are successful they want to emulate. And there's someone that I follow on social media. They're a group of it's a husband and wife. They're out of Ohio. The name is Josh and Tiffany High, and they have a really good, they have a really, I sell leads to those people and the people that they coach as well. But they had an interesting metric. Their metric was where 87% of our contracts signed come after 9 p.m. at night. So that's like that piece of like real estate is literally made for savages. The people who are just trying to dip their toe in and like do a little here, a little, you just can't get traction. It is a hustle. You got to get in there and you got to sprint. And so let me give you an example. So the software that people use who buy leads from me, it has an on and off button. So if you don't want to get leads after 8 o'clock at night, you pause your account. So it doesn't matter if leads come in, they won't go to you. And then at 8 in the morning, if you unpause it, now you have the chance for leads to now come into you eventually when they're created. So the people who are the most successful on this platform never pause their account. They literally will get leads at 12 at night, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and they literally will wake up and make calls, or they'll start with a text message. Now this is a very extreme case, but this is not something that from what I've experienced, it's not rare. Like they say to me, I don't understand why. They'll say to me, why are people pausing their accounts? I say, well, they have a family, or they want to go to bed, or they want to make sure that they're available when something comes in so that the lead doesn't sit around for a while. And they're like, why don't they just wake up and call? Like their brains are built different, right? Because
Yeah.
it's things happen quick in real estate. So if think about this, Russell, you have been following up with the same person for 12 months and you've done it over and over again, excruciating, but the system's working. Every time you talk to them, you're a little bit closer. You're like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm not there yet, but a little bit closer. And then finally, they are ready to talk to Russell. And they call you at 9 o'clock at night. And Russell doesn't answer. And they're like, they called you because things changed and now they're in some financial strap
Right.
where time is now a factor. It wasn't for the last 12 months because they had time, but they waited too long. And all that time, they wanted to work with you. But their financial situation puts it where they have to put their feelings aside of how they feel about Russell because this needs to happen now. And then
Mhm.
after you don't answer, they go on the internet, they go to fastcashoffer.com or whatever it is where somebody's going to immediately call them. And then they end up taking a discount because Russell wasn't available because he was sleeping or he was working on his Volkswagen. He was doing one of the two things. And they went on the
Well,
internet and had someone call him and then they got the deal. So it's the urgency.
yeah, I'd be sleeping. My bedtime's 8:30, buddy. Yeah, so that makes sense. And we talk about it. We've talked about it. Real estate's it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Number one. And then number two, you got to put in the work. Sounds like what you're saying is the people that are crushing it are putting in the work. Now, are they doing this 24/7? No, I'm sure that they're taking time off for their family, but I'm sure they have a string of, okay, I'm going to work on this for X amount of time, for X amount of hours, and then I'm going to take some time off with the family and stuff. So I don't want to scare, we don't want to scare people like, oh my God, I have to be awake at midnight to call these leads. No, the people that are crushing it have a specific timeline of when they're going to be calling these leads and doing the 5 touches in a day. You're saying five touches per lead per day.
Twice
Is
a
that
day like
accurate?
that. So it goes 5 touches and they get another one at like after 5 o'clock at night, they get another 5 touches like that.
Yeah, and when we talk about touches, it's automated, right? We're not saying that you're texting personally. We're not saying you're going to email them personally. This is something that's in a CRM
Mhm.
that is triggered. So again, yes, you're gonna be physically dialing for the first three, 1, 2, 3, leave a voicemail, and then you're gonna trigger a workflow, right? That's going to again touch them. You are not going to touch them. The computer's going to touch them.
Mhm.
And then then you just move on to that next lead and you call them 3 times, leave a voicemail, trigger it,
Mhm.
call them next one. And the work is putting it is making those dials initial, and then you just automate everything else. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is accurate. I think the important thing, right? Because I'm glad you said what you said about not trying to scare people away. This isn't what everyone does. You have to understand though, like when you're building a business, the first few years is you wearing the hats and
Mm,
you're working like an animal to hopefully get to the place where now you've created revenue in a machine that's working. And now it's much easier for you to go ahead and create revenue because over this time of getting beat up, the system's starting to come together. The mechanism's starting to take off. Now you have income coming in. Now you can hire. And then maybe you hire an acquisitions person who can come in and help close deals. And you're only bothered when it's like going to an appointment or closing a deal or whatever it is. But for you to get to that point, there is going to be these times where acting like a absolute animal who may sleep less at the time just to be able to pick up traction in their business. Like you always see the hardest hustles if they're going to be successful right when they're building the business because you're learning so much. And if like the way I always thought about it, Russell, was I am putting so much effort into this thing that I suck at right now. But you know what? I will not let all of this time that I've sacrificed away from my kids, or maybe it was like I didn't play in a softball league or I didn't golf that year just to focus on this thing. That's not all going to be in vain, right?
mhm,
This is just that learning time, that learning year. Eventually I'll get to the place where I'm I have a business that's starting to really run on its own. I have employees that are helping me get even more traction and be in multiple places at once because I can only be in one place. So
right.
it's just that initial hustle, but also too, what you learn in that first year, Russell, was so mentally taxing on me. I'll never forget that. I also won't forget how much I was able to persevere and get through adversity like I have never experienced before. I've never did anything that was just like I was a W-2 worker, right? So like you
Yep.
work hard and how do you know you did good? You did a good job for the week. You get paid. And
Mhm,
that was me. I always associated success with the bag that I was given at the end of the week. That good job, Steve. Here's some money, right?
right.
And building a business, whether it's real estate or something else, you're putting a lot of time into learning and talking to human beings on the phone takes a lot of energy, especially if like when you're learning the scripts or whatever it is, and it's really difficult at the time because you're just trying to find your confidence and remember the way to communicate with people and figure out how to communicate in a way where across the board with all these different personalities, I'm having better conversations. I'm getting farther into the conversations with people, even when they're no's. I'm figuring out the pattern of what's the organization of this call that gets the best out of people and the best out of me. But
Mhm,
that's really tough because like when you're building a business and anything, it usually costs money. You don't make money until you start making money. So
Great.
that you have to be able to get your mentality around the fact that I'm not looking to make money right now. If I do, that's great. I'm looking to create a skill set that's going to bring in revenue eventually. And it's difficult to wrap your head around it. But if you just trust it and you absolutely plow through that dark tunnel, there's always light on the other side. You're just going to have the courage to get through it.
Yeah, great stuff. Again, the money's in the follow up. In our community, we call it 7 steps to a taken. And you have that initial, you like you said, you do the touches, you send out an email, maybe you send out a text, but the follow up, right? You got to get on the phone with them again and try to solve a solution, right? We're not, again, we're not in our community, we're not looking, we're not looking to, cut people's legs underneath them or come in at a discount. So we are simply trying to solve a solution. And what the best you need to follow up, and you said it, to get that appointment. Once you go on the appointment, then it starts to flow. Right now, you're sending out offers. Now you're negotiating. You're talking about numbers, and you're really getting to know the seller at that point. But if you're not doing any follow ups, you're not going on any appointments, and you're wasting your money. If you are buying leads, or if you're in a coaching program, it's simply a very expensive paperweight.
You said it.
Yep. So great stuff, Steve. We're gonna get out of here. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you on Tuesday, having a couple of whalers rise.
Yes, sir. I will be there. I will be there. And I got some new tattoos to show you, Russell, when we get there.
I saw them on your
I'm
hand.
going to buy my ears. I'm going to buy my ears too now.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Oh, Jesus, dude. You sound like a real old parent right now.
All right, Steve.
Adios, brother.
Have a great weekend. Take care, buddy.
Bye, man.
That's it.